How do we pick up the pieces of our life and heart after loss, devastation, trauma, or even transitions? How do we start all over again in order to create a new life with our new identity and treasure it again? My name is Michelle Durand, and I am your hostess for Life is a Treasure podcast. Each episode will help you through transitions in life by offering hope through others' real, raw stories and healing testimonies of transformations from tears to treasures. Every week, we will bring you inspiration to encourage you, information to empower you, as well as implementation ideas to equip you to create and live a life that is a treasure. Have you ever felt like, why is this all happening to me? Will I ever be able to move on? I feel so hopeless and helpless. I wonder why I'm even here. What is my purpose anyway? Well, you're not alone. We all face obstacles and transitions during our lifetime. What matters the most is how we use these as keys to unlock our greatest potential in order to become our best self. My name is Michelle Durand, and I'm the founder and speaker of Tears to Treasures, Healing from Abortions. And today, I would like to share with you my very first podcast, Life is a Treasure, Episode 1. One of the treasures in my life is to witness hearts and lives being transformed from pain to purpose after abortion. But this podcast is not about abortion. You see, through Tears to Treasures, I've come to realize that there are so many other issues that we struggle with besides abortion. We all have a thing, a secret, something that keeps us up at night or has us feeling hopeless or lifeless even. It may be an abortion, or it could be an abusive relationship, maybe an affair, or the death of a loved one, perhaps a divorce, or even just facing empty nest. Whatever it is, this podcast is about exploring what has been pushed aside, pushed down, suppressed, silenced, preventing you from living a life that is a treasure. Together with my guests, we'll be sharing our real, raw, and vulnerable stories with inspiring life lessons to encourage you, as well as information to equip and empower you to implement what you learn in order to create a life that is a treasure to you. Because I believe, and I have personally experienced, that it is difficult to enjoy the treasures in life when we are in pain, physically, exhausted emotionally, or struggling spiritually. Our life radiates from the inside outwardly. Think about it. Sometimes hurting people hurt people. Angry people spread more anger. Stressed people cause more chaos. Depressed people have lost hope in themselves, and it affects their entire life. We all go through trials, traumas, and temptations. No one is exempt. So we either choose to cope in unhealthy, negative, harmful ways that may destroy our mind, our body, and our soul, or we can learn how to face our fears, process our thoughts, and express our emotions in healthy, productive ways that will help us to grow and develop into the best, highest versions of ourselves. And that, my friend, is what we will be discussing and sharing in these podcast episodes. Because I believe, and the way I understand this, is that our higher self is our soul, our essence, our true, authentic, pure, honest self, searching for connection and purpose in this world. And I believe that we are all conceived and created with a soul by the Spirit. And the body envelops the soul and the mind. But the mind helps the body and the soul navigate and experience life. I also believe that we all are spiritual beings living human experiences on this earth together. Therefore, I decided to name this podcast Life is a Treasure, and that the 3 pillars would be mind, body, and soul, and how they are intertwined and work together for our greatest purpose on earth. So each episode will be aimed toward mind, body, or soul topics, and sometimes all three. So I'd like to start this podcast by sharing a story from my own life to help you get to know me better, but to offer hope to anyone who has been through an abortion experience. And if this is you, to let you know that you are not alone and you can heal also. If you have not had an abortion, I still am going to ask you to listen with an open mind. It'll help you to know who I am, what I've been through, and also, most importantly, perhaps the information and the insight you gather from my story will help you in understanding what other people go through who've had an abortion, even though you haven't experienced it. You never know who might come into your life that you might want to support who has had an abortion, because a lot of times we know people who've had abortions, but we just don't know yet, because 1 out of 4 women have had an abortion. And it also affects the men as well. And I'll be speaking about that in a few episodes. But for today, I would just like to start with my abortion story, because that is what led me to where I am today and actually starting this podcast. So I had an abortion many years ago, but due to the extreme emotional distress that I endured, I deliberately detached from any and all of the physical and mental reminders of that day. It was my attempt to erase the event, or so I thought I could. But this state of emotional distress did not go away in a few days or a few months. It lasted for years, too many years actually. It also affected all of the relationships in my life. I did what I felt that I needed and wanted to do at that time. Yet I would still feel so ashamed for anyone to know what I'd done. My silent secret, my scarlet letter that I wore, big red A for the word abortion, because I felt in my soul that it was wrong. Even though my mind rationalized that it was the best solution for me, I had so much guilt for agreeing to end my baby's life. And my reasoning would just calm it down again and justify my actions like, oh, it really wasn't a baby yet. My mind and my soul went back and forth for so many years. The inner struggle was real, and it felt like torture, and I felt that I deserved that. But what I really, really needed was just to quiet my mind in order to feel and to hear my soul crying out. My soul was suffering and needed to be able to grieve the loss of my baby, who was gone, just like that. In 5 minutes, his life was gone. But my life would never be the same again, and his little life would never be mentioned again. So my soul needed to come to terms with this reality, to accept it and to heal in order for me to be able to move on with my life and be the best version of myself. I wanted so badly to forget about that abortion experience. But my fears were that if I forgot about the abortion, that would mean I would forget about my baby. And that kept me stuck because I wanted to heal. And I did eventually heal. And fortunately, my fears were not the truth, as most of the time, right? I did find healing and closure. And my baby was not forgotten. Even though I never got to hold him in my arms, I will always love him in my heart, and I will always treasure his short life that was in my womb. I think about him daily, just as I do my other children. I named him Joshua David, and this podcast is in honor of his life. Even though it was short, I will treasure it forever. And his tiny footprint has made such an imprint on my soul and an impact to so many others through Tears to Treasures. And you can find out more information at tearstotreasures.com. But as you can see from the story, my abortion experience really did affect my mind, my body, and my soul, which is another reason why I decided to share this in the first episode. In my mind, I had to make a conscious decision to deal with my feelings and release myself from the guilt, the shame, self-hatred that I had allowed myself to feel for so many years. I had to finally realize that I could never go back and change what had happened in the past. I had to learn how to process my complex and complicated emotions associated with that event in order to be able to heal, find closure to the past, and move on mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. For my body, I had to accept the consequences of my decision. I had to learn how to deal with the physical triggers and the reminders on a continuing basis. For my soul, I had to allow my anger, my guilt, my shame, my feelings of unworthiness to be redeemed by grace. And I had to learn how to forgive not only others, but myself for what I had done. I had to love myself and others again. It was not easy, but it definitely can be accomplished. I know that these type of situations can be extremely complicated and difficult. However, they are not impossible to overcome and heal from. I did, others do, and so can you. It just takes decision, commitment, and determination to seek healing and closure from my past experiences that continue to trigger and demand our attention. Because unresolved conflict held within our body will always find a way to come out eventually. So it's best that we deal with them and heal. The number one question I get asked is, Michelle, how do I forgive myself? And I have an episode coming up on that very topic. So make sure you're subscribed to get notified. But I believe that before we start the self-forgiveness process, we really need to look inward and see all of the wounds and the issues, the insecurities, the labels, the incidents that made us feel less than, made us feel like we weren't enough, and that we're not worthy of forgiveness. Oftentimes, these are our blocks, and they are limiting beliefs, they're unresolved wounds, childhood insecurities, and labels of who others think or say we are. So one way that we can do this is through self-awareness. I strongly believe that in order to begin to change anything or heal, we need to first become aware of it and then give it the time and the attention that it needs, whether this is for our mind, our body, or our soul. So let's take a look at the example of my abortion experience. In order to heal, I had to become aware of my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, and my words surrounding my abortion experience. I had to face the reality, the facts, the truth, in order to deal with my feelings. In other words, I had to deal to heal. This was the painful part. So during that time, I made sure that I practiced a lot of self-care. I offered myself grace daily and lots of self-compassion during that time. I had to choose to forgive others, and I started that journey of learning how to forgive myself. And as I began accepting my own forgiveness, something miraculously happened. My self-worth began to shine. It just started to shine through again. And I started to actually like myself. I actually learned how to love myself again after my abortion. It's definitely been difficult. And it still is at times. We all are going to still always struggle with things we go through. But the end result is so worth the effort, I promise. Because at the end, my guilt was replaced by grace. My shame was surrendered for worthiness. And my tears were transformed into beautiful treasures of forgiveness, healing, and freedom in order to live out my purpose. And to share this with all of you, to offer you hope. And the purpose of this podcast is to share the good news with you that you are also worthy of forgiveness, healing, and freedom from your past, no matter what it is. It's as simple as ABC. Accept your reality, begin taking baby steps today, and commit to yourself that you will heal, and you will. You can do it. I believe in you. You just have to believe in yourself. Accept the invitation and take action today. Don't put it off, because that's what we typically do, and it's a bad habit. So accept the invitation, take action today, make a decision that you will say yes to yourself. And please let us know in our Facebook community. We have a public Facebook group that I'm inviting you to right now, and it's called Life is a Treasure Podcast. I will have a link in the show notes. I would love for you to come there and use that as your accountability. Free. Let us know that you're making a commitment to heal from. You don't have to share what it is. And we will be there to support you and encourage you. And as we begin this journey together, I invite you to open your heart, open your mind, and allow new, fresh insights to come in. Let's explore some different perspectives and be willing to change our mindset and our behaviors in order to transform us from the inside out, like a cocoon turning into a butterfly. Beautiful butterfly. It starts with first going inward with that self-awareness, being fully aware of our thoughts, our words, our behaviors, and our actions, which ultimately determine who we are, who we think we are, and who we will become. So I decided to launch this podcast with a series called Treasure Yourself. And over the next few weeks, we will dive into each of these topics, starting with self-awareness, and then we'll talk about self-care and self-compassion, and then we'll really get into forgiveness, and especially self-forgiveness, which opens up our heart to our self-worth and our self-love. So make sure to subscribe so you do not miss an episode. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. They are going to be so good. My guests have so much wisdom and treasures to offer to you. You will not want to miss it. In the upcoming episodes, we'll explore what these self-concepts mean, why they are so important in our life, and how to cultivate each one into our daily routines in some way. We will dive deep. We will share stories. We'll offer you opportunities to help you overcome limitations, break through limiting beliefs, and learn how to treasure yourself and fulfill your soul purpose in life. Our goal is to help you realize that your value and your worth are priceless and unconditional. You are a treasured gem to be cherished no matter what you've been through, no matter what you've done. You may not feel that way right now based on the decisions that you've made or the things that people have been telling you all of your life. But you remember, you are not the decisions that you have made. I'll repeat that. You are not the decisions that you have made. You are not the choices that you made or that were made for you or to you. You are not who others say or think you are. You can discover who you truly are and who you want to become. As humans, we all strive to be the best that we can, and we can also create a life that is a treasure, a life that helps us to thrive rather than just barely survive. And this podcast is here and to help you do just that, while offering you hope along the way. We're all in this life together. So if you're ready to overcome some limiting beliefs, some negative behaviors, some bad habits, in order to create unlimited possibilities, positive experiences, and productive outcomes in your mind, body, soul, and life, then this podcast is for you. And we're here to help you. So, where do we start? The next episode, we will focus on self-awareness, what it means, why it is so important for us to be self-aware, and how to practice better self-awareness. We'll also touch on topics such as who we are, who we think we are, who we want to become, and why we're here. It all starts in our mind, with our thoughts, our beliefs, our mindset. And our mindset is what creates our life. So as we begin to become more aware of our thoughts, we're better able to determine how to make adjustments in order to align ourselves better with our core values and our worth. And when we take action from that place, we implement lasting transformations in our mind, body, and soul, and we begin to cultivate a life that is a treasure. So thank you so much for joining me in this very first ever episode, number 1 of Life is a Treasure podcast. I hope that you enjoyed it and will leave me a review, subscribe, and share it with your friends to help us spread the message of hope, help, and healing that we all so desperately need in our lives. Thank you so much for listening to Life is a Treasure podcast. As we begin to share our secret stories, others find the courage to start sharing theirs. And this is how the healing begins. So please help us by subscribing, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And make sure to tag me on Instagram at Michelle Marie with 2 E's, Durand, Durand, with hashtag Life is a Treasure podcast for a chance to get a shout out on the show. Also visit lifeisatreasure.com for all resources mentioned and freebies. And don't forget, come join us and continue the conversations in our free Facebook group, Life is a Treasure podcast. The link will be in the show notes. You can also find my social media links on the website, lifeisatreasure.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. Until next week, peace, love, and joy.